How's everybody doing? I'm waiting for our guest, Gina Bontempo, to join us. She is a fitness professional and a political pundit, and I thought it would be an amazing time talking to her. I believe she has some family stuff, but I will talk to you guys until she joins us. If she's going to be able to, I don't know. I'm pretty sure, but I just started a petition that I would like all of you to sign. This is where you can see it. So please do sign my petition. Let's get this going here. There's 27 out of 31 signatures, and it is in the chat right now. Please do, please do sign this. It is, oh, hang on, here's Gina. So I'm going to pop back on and we can talk about this here in a second. Give me 1 minute. Gina, it is a pleasure to meet you finally. How are you?
Hi, I'm good, thanks. Sorry, I'm a couple minutes late, but thank you for having me.
Oh, no problem. Thank you for joining us. I've been a fan of yours for a while. Like me and you seem to talk about a lot of the same things online.
Mm-hmm.
You just do it in a much more attractive way than me. But I wanted to get your opinions on just a few things. I find your story rather interesting because I can very relate. Because what a lot of people don't understand about me is I used to be considered what would be called a classic liberal. And I believe that that's your history also. I read your pinned post is how you went to school and shaved your head and wrote for Team Vanity and stuff like that. So can you tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. I was a raging lib. I had blue hair and half of my head was shaved. I grew up in a pretty small Southern town. So I grew up with kind of like the quintessential American life. But when I went to college and graduate school is when everything sort of changed, which I know is a very common narrative for a lot of people. Mm-hmm. Higher education really, truly does indoctrinate you. I'll never forget in graduate school, I took a class called Race, Ethics in the U.S. Prison System. And that was, the entryway into believing that all minorities were oppressed. And that's kind of started off my stint in classical liberalism. And then I wrote for a lot of women's digital magazines. I edited for a lot of these magazines. And it all started with them giving me like a list of things to write about. And it was all these liberal topics like about cultural appropriation and intersectional feminism, body positivity and fat acceptance. So I was behind a lot of that content for a few years. And then I would probably say 2016-ish. That seems to be a pretty big red pill year for a lot of people. I think Trump really helped. Yeah. Trump really helped usher that in. So that was the sort of year of reckoning for me. That was the year that the veil was pulled back. And that's the year that I left mainstream women's media too, because I realized that all of the content that we were producing for women was really detrimental to women. So that was a big turning point for me.
It's funny you bring up 2016 because mine's for a different reason. I actually didn't vote for Trump the first time, but at that time I'd been a healthcare executive for quite a few years. It's right when I started on doing commentary and on YouTube and stuff like that. But I had been a healthcare executive for about a dozen years at the time. And before that, I had believed in universal healthcare and, I would be considered what was called a tree hugger, those sorts of things. And when the DNC literally stole the nomination from Bernie Sanders, I all of a sudden sat back and took a look like they're all corrupt, like we do need to do something different here. And then the more that I saw about healthcare, and how the healthcare system is in fact it's a sick care system designed to keep people sick. And it just struck me how supportive the left all of a sudden became of it. I remember when I was growing up, liberals were considered to be people that tried to just be in the best shape they could be in and, try to avoid being in healthcare. And, they called them tree huggers for a reason. You're into nature and everything like that. And it just shifted so hard in the 2012 to Obama destroyed a lot of shit. I don't know if that upsets people in my audience, but arguably one of the historically most corrupt and evil people ever, if you ask me. Yeah. But you wrote about body positivity. What was the awakening moment about the shift in that for you? Because I that's obviously a huge portion of my content. And I'm more of a constitutional absolutist than any Republican or Democrat. But the fat acceptance community caught my attention, I believe in 2016 also, which is where I was just like, this has to change. This is very detrimental. Like, but where did you start noticing for them? Because we write a lot about the same things about obesity and stuff like that online. I was wondering your perspective on it.
I would say one of the first little things that started helping me see the other side was I was working in an editorial room in San Francisco. So I was working for a digital media company. And that was the first time I was really in an office from 9 to 5 in digital media. And it just occurred to me one day, I looked around the editorial room and I looked at all of the editors and editorial directors and executives that were pushing body positivity and fat acceptance content. And none of them were overweight. All of them were thin, very healthy. There was a pretty big culture in our office about working out and eating well. Like right across the street was a Barry's boot camp. And the editors would often get together after work and go work out, or sometimes go for a lunchtime class. And it occurred to me that none of the people who were promoting fat acceptance were fat. So it was a very much rules for thee, but not for me. And this is a theme that is present in all verticals of women's digital media, down to things like marriage rates and abortion rates. Like all of the women who write about abortion, all the women who who discourage women from getting married, they're all married women who have children. And so they're pushing all of these harmful values onto their readers. And it becomes this very condescending thing. Well, I'm going to be a size 2. I'm going to work out and have a kale salad for lunch, but you should be fat. You should be fat because it's empowering. And that was the first time where I kind of said to myself, there's something going on here. And then probably I think this may have been the last straw for me. One of my fellow writers was doing a piece on PCOS. So a lot of women in the States struggle with PCOS. And most of the time, PCOS is a result of poor lifestyle and diet. And she wrote in her article, she interviewed a couple of different experts, and she wrote that obesity can either exacerbate or cause PCOS, and that losing weight, if you are overweight or obese, can be very helpful to treating PCOS. The editorial director removed that part from her article and published it. And I'm sitting here thinking to myself, do they actually want to empower women? All these companies, they claim to want to empower women, but they're giving this false information and detrimental information that's actually ruining their lives.
I mean, it's completely factual. At no point in time should anybody consider not losing weight if you have PCOS, literally because the state of inflammation a person's in exacerbates just about every health condition, but especially PCOS, which is also an inflammatory condition itself. I think that I'm sure you've seen the show The Biggest Loser, right?
Yeah.
I think that they honestly, the more I look back on those shows, and I would love the opportunity to redo one. I'm actually in talks with somebody right now about pitching an idea to do one that would actually help people. Because even though I'm known as the yelly, screamy guy, that's not how I coach people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I've had a very, very good success rate. I believe I've seen some of your clients' transformations too. A very good success rate with helping people escape morbid obesity, and it's normally done by safe movement-based activity with proper nutrition and not being over-restrictive, just being a normal person, right? But I think that those shows were meant to demonize fitness. The more I look back on it, at no point in time can I possibly imagine that they thought that they were doing the right thing. And I do believe that's the same thing where Hollywood and the people that made that show are also the same people that you worked for, basically, where it's they don't really want the real information out there. They want it to seem either way too hard. I mean, that series of show probably convinced so many people not to even try. To think that you need to actually almost break your legs running when you're 400 pounds to lose weight, and then watching these people's faces when they would lose. I remember I was watching an episode not too long ago for research, and the person said, I only lost 20 pounds this week, and I was like, Jesus fucking Christ, you only lost 20 pounds, and of course the person's huge, but what I got to say is a lot of things that people don't understand about the biology of this. When you lose weight that rapidly, especially if it's actual mass, if it's actual body mass, not just hydration, that changes the volume of blood your body needs. That can be so deleterious in so many ways. How much has social media, mainstream media, those sorts of things skewed the idea of fitness? And do you run up against the problems? I'm wondering the problems you run up against in your own coaching with your clients because of those things.
Social media seems to present one of two extremes. And I think that's so unhealthy. So you, on one extreme, you have, of course, something like Lizzo. Her handle on Instagram is literally Lizzo be eating.
Jeez.
And I know
I'm
you do a lot.
I'm proud to say that she's blocked me. I think me and Candace Owens are the only two people she's blocked. I was like, at least
You know
I'm in the
what? I
conversation.
saw she blocked me too. I don't even know why. I've never come after her. I mean,
Yeah.
whatever. It's just one of those things where she knows exactly what she's doing. She knows she knows she's morbidly obese. She knows she leads an unhealthy lifestyle, but she pretends like that's her natural weight. So you have these two extremes. You have the Lizzos and the Tess Holidays. And then you have all the way on the other side, you have fitness influencers who, you know, are totally shredded and have six packs and do all these bodybuilding competitions. And a lot of those people are not even really that healthy. So
Right.
you're presenting these two extremes to an everyday person. And I work with a lot of women who are everyday moms. Like I would say my average quintessential clientele is a 40-year-old mom with two sons, you know, and they don't need a six pack. They don't need to have a perfect physique, but they also don't want to be morbidly obese so that they can actually take care of their children and set a healthy example for the next generation. So a lot of these women come to me and they say that social media can be very discouraging on both sides because you have the one extreme of the fat acceptance, and now magazines like Cosmopolitan we've taken it from fat is beautiful to fat is healthy.
Yeah, which is scary.
Which is so scary. So now you're pushing the agenda to go even more radical to where this is healthy and it's this morbidly obese person on the cover of the magazine. And then women also come to me and say that it's really discouraging that you've got these crazy fitness influencers that, you know, their hormones are all out of whack too because they're doing all the wrong things. So it's just two extremes right now.
I find that to be very similar because I coach pretty much average everyday people. My business partner Mark, he coaches like athletes, but I coach people that just want to live a little longer. I've got this phrase like I train to lift 9 pounds when I'm 90. I want to be able to lift my 9-pound great grandchild when I'm 90 years old and not have anybody worried that I'm going to drop him. You know what I mean? Like that's goals to me. And the weird thing about society right now is that like I'm not like you're around fitness people, so you understand what I'm talking about. I'm not that big of a man, but it's like it's this still like people think I'm even extreme when I should be kind of like the average 50-year-old. Like I think we've gotten it so skewed in society where you either need to be like a 250-pound bodybuilder to be considered jacked, or you're fat as fuck. Yeah. And it's this weird thing where it's easy to demonize anybody that looks fit nowadays, because we are in a very serious minority. I'm sure you've been around. Mark is on a cruise right now, and he's like, "Holy shit!" Because he's only around athletes all the time. He's like, "Oh my god," But I saw a poster the other day where you're talking about the obesity epidemic, and my biggest concern is, what do you think we can do as a fitness community, as people, to try to start to rectify? Because my worry is, knowing healthcare statistics the way I do, we've already reached a tipping point where there's going to be some sort of mass culling within the next like 10 so years. Like all the data points to, if the longer you stay obese, the shorter your life gets. And we've got a lot of people right now. I have a lot of clients who are in their mid-20s who have been morbidly obese since they were like 10. And if they don't change soon, they're not going to make 40. So we already see the average age of life expectancy dropping. And I'm worried that we're going to see this like a mass culling of the population, because it's just not sustainable to be 30 years old with 300 pounds and not change, not do something about it. You're not going to live long, right? But also, at the same time, it seems that we have demonized fitness to the stage where, like, I saw an article the other day I talked about where they kind of put it out there like, don't work out too hard, you might have a stroke.
I saw that.
What what do you think we can do besides, set an example and just kind of talk? Because I'm a big believer in kind of how, like, you're like me without the swear words, and again, much more attractive. because like, I'm just not like, I've just kind of put it out there where it's like, this is just the truth. You know, I mean, no matter how we go about it, if you're this big, you are unhealthy.
Mm-hmm.
And while that wins over some people, I just don't see that. I see that the mainstream media engine, which is driven by pharma, which is another crazy thing that people don't seem to correlate, they're just pushing the Lizzos and Tess Holliday's world. What can we do as people to try to right the ship?
It's such a good question. It's funny you say that, sometimes I deliver the message a little more gently. And that's honestly because women can't handle hearing a message delivered in the way that a lot of men do. So someone like you, or, Ajax, Alexander Cortez, like he always
Yeah.
talks about how he can't deliver his message to women the way that he does to men because it just doesn't land. So sometimes I want to shout at people because
Yeah.
it's just, I want to just shout at these women because it's so hard to see them self-destruct. But it's, sometimes women have to hear kind of a softer tone. And even my tone is really not that soft. But, it's a tough question because there's a lot of things. I think number one, we have to convince people that you are the answer.
Yeah.
We have to really make people understand that our bodies are incredible systems that are designed to heal themselves if you just give them the right tools.
Right.
So what really makes me nervous these days is the rising popularity of Ozempic, Wegovy,
Oh,
all these semaglutide drugs. I mean, diabetic medications that are being, hijacked for weight loss. And it really makes me nervous how so many of the media companies are pushing it, and obviously pharmaceutical companies pushing it, and doctors are just handing it out to all these people now. I mean, I know people who are just 20 pounds overweight and they just go to the
crazy.
doctor, they get Ozempic, and it's done. I just don't think that we're going to really see the full effects of something like Ozempic until another 10 years down the line. So I
Well,
think
they don't have any long-term testing.
exactly. And
Yeah.
people are like, oh, every drug has a side effect. I'm like, just wait.
Yeah.
Just wait and see what's going to happen in 5 to 10 years.
You know, from the studies on it, like, first of all, a lot of people don't understand. Semaglutide is the actual like parent ingredient. Both Wegovy and Ozempic are semaglutide, and there's a black box warning on it for thyroid tumors.
Yeah,
Like
I
it,
saw
it is
that.
it is it is the harshest warning that the FDA can deliver, which the FDA is. I mean, it's pay for play, but and they have no long-term testing. So a medication that causes such serious side effects, like people, I mean, some of this stuff is just crazy. I mean, and it's not even just the ones that people talk all the time, but people have suicidal ideation on this all the
Mhm.
time. This medication is contraindicated to be written for people that have any type of depression. Name me a 300-pound person who has type 2 diabetes that is willing to pay $1,500 a month and inject themselves in the stomach that does not have depression. Like, I mean, I have a hard time believing this, right? And they tell people right off the bat that they just plan on them being on this medication forever.
Yeah.
They have no idea what it's going to do to them. Like, people, it's going to. I worry that it's just going to like blow out people's pancreases after a while.
Yeah.
Like, their livers and pancreas are just not going to be able to take this at all. And that's another reason why, since we're going more towards that model, like the pharmaceutical model that way, also, that is, I believe, is going to be very, very, very hard. It's the same thing with cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes in general, where lifestyle mitigation and leading a healthy lifestyle, eating whole foods and, and having occasional enjoyment, good social interactions,
Mm-hmm.
having a strong family unit, like taking, like, spending time with your children, your parents, your family, your spouses. Like, these things are very tantamount to health. But instead, everybody's going to a pharmaceutical-based model. Everybody's on statins, stuff like that. And I saw the shift way more before 2020. But I think, and by the way, I called this about the Ozempic and stuff like that being pushed about 6 months before it happened. I was like, now that they've got everybody used to thinking that they should get a vaccine for everything or get an injection for everything, and all these injections, the push for weight loss surgery and weight loss drugs is just going to be impressive. And Ozempic and Wegovy are looking to be the most lucrative pharmaceutical medications ever for the pharmaceutical industry, ever. And the weird thing I find about this the whole time is these medications are made to just make you eat less.
Yeah.
That's literally what they do. So they sell it on a label of, well, you're obese because your genetics, but take this medication, it's going to make you eat less, right? When you have new clients come to you, have you had any new clients come to you that have been on it?
No, I haven't. I mean, not yet anyway. So I haven't worked with anyone directly who's been taking it.
Yeah, I've had a few people on it, and I've had a few people that many people that have gotten off of it and then come to us, and they've either started using our supplement or they've literally just come to try to just manage their hunger via food. The crazy thing is they have a very hard time getting off of it because apparently the side effects rear their head again when they come off of it. And a huge problem is it actually lowers their basal metabolic rate because the level of body mass, lean body mass they lose is higher than if they would lose weight without it. So there's many occasions where the person actually, their body fat percentage goes up as their body weight goes down because they're losing more lean mass, bone mass, and muscle mass than they are fat mass, right? So they struggle with the portion sizes, but normally I put them on like either keto or carnivore, or I do a version of like, in the morning it's carnivore, in the afternoon it's keto, and then it's whole foods in the evening, no processed carbohydrates of any kind for a little while until we get your muscle mass back up. Instead of cardio, we have them go more towards resistance training to try to build muscle mass back and everything like that. But it's just gotten to be very strange because I don't think that the results are playing out, even though they're pushing for it. How much do you think 2020 has impacted the way people are viewing not only themselves in a health fashion, but what they're willing to do about it, like such as the Ozempic and Wegovy thing?
Yeah, I don't think we can stress enough how much the government succeeded at convincing people that they're not able to do anything on their own and that they need pharmaceutical or government assistance to do the most basic things. I mean, it's kind of a joke, but it's also not. COVID broke people. It completely broke people's brains. And I don't think, and it's by design. Nobody can say that it's not by design. They were so successful. And I don't think there's any way back for a lot of people. I think that they have just been they've just gone so far down the rabbit hole of believing that they can't take care of their own health. They can't take care of their own body. They're not even able, even down to like not being able to educate their own children. Like the government has even convinced people that mothers are not equipped to educate their own children and they have to go to the public schools and they have to be taught by these teachers. And so of course they're not going to believe that they can take care of their own health. And the pandemic, I think the absolute worst thing, there were a lot, but probably one of the worst things about the pandemic is that it completely isolated people. And if you look at all of these, so for example, that 85-year-long study from Harvard that tracks, the happiest, healthiest people, the number one common denominator is warm relationships, is having a good family life. And we've seen that with the blue zones. One of the biggest common denominators is people could be 90 years old and drinking wine, eating cheese and bread and pasta, but they're with their family every night for 4 hours. They have a lot of social interactions with their friends and family. And that lowers stress in your body, and stress causes so much inflammation and can lead to so many chronic illnesses. So I think one of the worst things to come out of COVID is that people now live these very isolated lives, and even teenagers, they lost like 3 years of high school. So then of course you have all of these young girls who go to the doctor with irregular menstrual cycles. And instead of helping these girls treat the root cause of an ultra processed diet, 8 to 10 hours a day on social media, living a sedentary life and never going outside, instead of actually helping them get healthy, they're throwing the birth control pill at them. Which is one thing that I talk about a lot too on my page, because I don't think people understand how much the birth control pill is ruining women's health. It's making them depressed, suicidal. It's making them fat. It's many times is making them infertile. So I think 2020 and the years after have just broken people to believe that they desperately need big pharma and the government to even survive.
I think I personally believe that the pharmaceutical industry is likely the most corrupt industry in the world. Just because how they operate, they are a known historically corrupt industry, historically corrupt companies. Pfizer paid the largest fine ever. It was billions of dollars they had to pay for bribing doctors, for bribing doctors to lie, basically. And you bring up the birth control pill. What I find funny is that like hormone replacement therapy as you age has been shown to have massive amounts of very positive effects for people, for longevity. It avoids sarcopenia. And for women, it avoids a lot of issues. However, birth control hormones given to 14-year-old girls while they're still developing, I just don't know. I don't know how we got there. I don't know how we got there. My wife and I have been married a long time, and right when we started dating, when she was thinking about going on the pill, it did not work out well. It's when you can. She had never been on it, but when you can notice that it changes behavior, how they feel, causes depression, those sorts of things. Like, stop taking this. Like, if you're on any medication and it changes your behavior, you should be talking to a doctor about like coming off of that medication. Even some allergy medications, like I think it's Zyrtec. Zyrtec's been known to cause very serious depression in people too, and it's over the counter. But we've gotten so used to like all these artificial remedies. And I noticed that you do a lot of cooking, which is another thing that we have very seriously in common. I cook almost everything from scratch in my house too. You're on a big sourdough bread kick right now, which I think is amazing, because out of all the processed carbohydrates you could possibly have, you occasionally have some sourdough. It's actually good for your gut, you know. And that's the type of thing I think we need. But then I talked to my son, who's 23 years old, right? Him and his girlfriend are the only two people in their entire friend circle that have any idea how to cook. Like, any idea how to cook. I'm not saying all this was planned, but I can tell you, being in the healthcare industry, they want people sick. They want you dependent. Okay. It seems like such a coordinated effort for that to happen. When you brought up COVID, it occurred to me how, I think it's RFK Jr. stated it, like, the average people that gained weight gained 29 pounds in 2020. And I think it's actually likely more than that. If you can't go to a Walmart right now, and the level of obesity is just catastrophic. It's just crazy. Yeah. And for about half a decade, the CDC has been kind of massaging the numbers on what obesity is, because if you look at their 2018 numbers, if you went by waist to height ratio, the average person in America was viscerally obese, had a waist to height ratio above 0.6, right? The average woman weighs 170 pounds, 5.5, 5'3.5" inches tall, 170 pounds at 5'3.5", with a waist to height ratio of 0.61. That's the average woman in America. And the average male is 200 pounds. Like, you and I both know the average male, like, should not weigh close to 200 pounds. No. Like the average male, 5'9", should be about 170 pounds. Right. Somewhere in there. And instead of like saying that we're over 50% obesity, they're still going to go by BMI. But they also allow the avenue for BMI to be kind of looked at as flawed, and it just muddies the water even more. It's the same thing like when with COVID, how they did deaths and then went to cases. Like, well, we got to worry about cases. Like, well, if I catch COVID, actually kind of a good thing, because then I get natural immunity, So my case is a positive. If my mother, who is 80 years old with like 6-7 comorbidities, gets COVID, that's a dangerous thing, And I think that the fear tactics, I think in the Obama era is when we went from, our government was told to like try to keep everything, like try to keep people calm. Like H1N1 happened during Obama, and nobody even knows about that. By the way, people, you can look statistically and know H1N1 is dramatically more deadly than COVID. Like has a much higher infection fatality rate, a much higher. It was barely on the news. They just told people to be healthy and clean your hands and go about your day. That was the last time that happened. And then it was everything, all terror all the time. Yeah. And especially when the Orange Man got elected, I mean, it was all like we became so divisive. Do you still have anybody in your circle that is from the left? Like do you have any liberals that you speak to that are?
A couple, not many. I would say probably a handful, 3 to 5 friends from San Francisco who are more liberal, but when my husband and I met in San Francisco, we met at jiu-jitsu. My husband teaches martial arts. And
your husband's badass.
So I was also, at the time, I was working in fitness full-time as a coach. So our circles of martial arts and fitness those just generally tend to be a little more center or right. So our immediate circle in San Francisco, even though San Francisco is crazy with, all the not so lefties, a lot of our friends were more on the moderate side, even if they were left of center. So I didn't lose that many friends in my sort of transition, but I will say there are 3 to 5 friends who are still pretty much very, very on the left, but most of them we can kind of like joke about politics today, but even those friends are really coming around when it comes to things like the vaccine, when it comes to things like big pharma. I think that there is a shift happening, that people who are classically liberal and may disagree with us on social issues like gay marriage or things like that, I think we still find a lot of common ground with them, because they're starting to realize that the system is very much rigged against us, and that the government is not, they don't want the best for us. So I think that there is a tide that's turning.
So I think that's a huge thing. Also, I really, the government pitting us against each other is a huge thing. Because what's weird for me is I still consider myself kind of in the middle on a lot of stuff. I'm obviously very seriously conservative when it comes to constitutional rights. I believe all gun laws are unconstitutional.
Right.
I believe freedom of speech should be absolute. And I don't even mean the Elon Musk type of absolute. I mean, like, I should just be able to say whatever the fuck I want.
Yeah.
Like anywhere. And I think it's the government's job to be able to protect me. So like if a platform would take me down, the government should have stepped in and said, no, you can't infringe upon this person's right to speak, And if I say something heinous or racist or something like that, then people know I'm a heinous racist person, and now we know, right? But along those lines, like when it comes to like social stuff, I have my beliefs on almost every topic, but they all almost fall back to the Constitution. Like, I believe in like minding my own business, individual liberty, and I believe like that the government should know almost nothing about us. But instead, I have watched this pattern multiple years of Black Lives Matter. Then from Black Lives Matter, once that started failing, then we went to what was it? It was Stand for Ukraine. Like a bunch of American citizens putting Ukraine flags in their fucking and cheering, sending billions of dollars while we have homeless vets. It's disgusting. And then we literally had now it's the LGBTQ 4-5 whatever it is,
and the trans kids.
And the trans kids thing. And when they went for the kids, at first I was like, oh, the community's gone too far. And I don't think that's it. I really think that the people that have a vested interest in keeping us divided, I think that they're the ones who are like, okay, we need to have kid drag queen hour, because they knew that would flip people's lids. I feel bad for the old gays. I even talked about this for a while. Like the people that were like marched forever ago, that they just wanted to be left alone. That's their constitutional right to be left alone. If it doesn't affect me, I'm a big believer it doesn't affect anybody. These people fought for decades to try to get the stigma of pedophilia off of them, and now it's been slapped back on the whole community like that, right? And I just don't. I don't believe that this, like, we've nearly seen the end of this, and I do think it does happen on both sides a little bit. Like I'm watching the whole. What are your thoughts on the whole DeSantis Trump thing? Like, it kind of saddens me to see both. It kind of saddens me to see both sides do this, because right now there's a whole. I don't know who the fuck still supports Biden. That's just next level crazy. But the whole Biden Robert Kennedy Jr. thing, like it's like even the people that are supposed to be on kind of the same side, it's not even debate or anything like that. It's so visceral. It's so like alienating, that I wonder like if that's part of the whole like idea of keeping everybody divided too, because right now we even have conservatives yelling back and forth at each other about DeSantis and Trump, which I don't know how they think that that's productive. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's so tribalistic and it's very, very unproductive. It's disappointing because, kind of looking at it from the sidelines, I guess you could say, because I loved a lot of the things that Trump did, but nobody can deny that he also screwed up royally on a lot of things, like putting Fauci in power. I don't think anyone can deny that Fauci wouldn't have had as much power as he did if it weren't Trump giving him that power. But you're not allowed to say that, because then the Trumpers will come after you and call you, an establishment shill and say that you're pro DeSantis. You're just not allowed to criticize Trump, even if you are a fan of him. And then, there's some things about DeSantis that are great, and then some that I feel he's a little bit too manufactured, whatever. You think he's a little bit establishment. But the problem is that things have just become so tribalistic, and there's a really big thing happening also on the right of just outrage culture. A lot of the things that people on the right are talking about and arguing about today is just pure outrage that I think is completely unproductive to what actually needs to be done. Because there's a lot that needs to be done right now. But I think that a lot of people on the right are being distracted, and sure, it's intentional. It's by design so that we are distracted from the bigger issues. But there's a lot more important things that we really should be talking about. But the whole Trump versus DeSantis thing is, I'm already tired of it. And it's not even 2024 yet. I'm already tired of it. And I'm a little bit nervous. I think that Trump will probably get the nomination, but I don't trust our voting system. I don't. I think that if it's Trump versus Biden again, I think they're going to do everything they possibly can to get Biden in. He's probably going to go in again. Who knows? He may not make it through a second term, and it's going to be Kamala that takes over. I just don't have a lot of hope right now. And I don't think it's so much about we need more people to vote. I just don't believe, I don't believe in the voting systems.
Well, I'm a big advocate for, I worry much more about local elections. This is where people call me a libertarian when I'm not actually a libertarian either. But I am not for DeSantis running. I live in Florida, and I much would prefer him to stay here.
I say that too. Yeah, I'm not even a Florida resident, and I say that.
Yeah. We have been the last bastion of freedom, which is another reason why when Trump has been coming out recently and saying that Florida handled COVID poorly, that just gives me such the creeps, because if the orange man could just come out and say he handled COVID poorly, he'd get my vote. You know what I mean? Because the economy, when my only beef with him was how he handled COVID. That was it, Yeah. And because the economy was crushing before COVID. But for him to be using the rhetoric of cases and stuff like that against Florida, it's just so weird to me. It's almost like a switch of sides. And the RFK guy sounds more conservative now than it's like they set up these oppositions. But I'm all for DeSantis staying in Florida, and I would love to have a convention of the states, which I think is our true way out of this, because I don't trust the system. Our justice system is completely, obviously, blatantly rigged, and it's not rigged against necessarily even Democrats or Republicans. It's rigged against the people. Our justice system, the FBI is corrupt, the CIA is corrupt. So I would love for us to get enough governors together to get a convention of the states and kind of reboot the federal government. But I just don't think, most people have never even heard of that. But health-wise, just because I know I didn't want to keep you too long, because I know you had stuff to do today. But I just wanted to ask you, Trump wins, okay? He's president again. What are the odds of another pandemic?
Oh my gosh. I didn't even think about that. That's a really scary one, because I think I sort of let my guard down at the end of last year, because last year I was thinking to myself, I'm like, this is not over. They are going to manufacture something else soon. And then there's I don't know, I guess I kind of forgot about it at the beginning of 2023. But, now that I think about it again, I think we're going to have to brace ourselves for something else, because if he does win, if Trump is back in office, all bets are off. Who knows what kind of shenanigans they're going to get up to just to do anything to sabotage him, because it worked the first time and they were so successful at it.
Precedent has been set. That was my biggest problem. This is also another question I like to ask. COVID. When did you know it was bullshit? I said something on March 15th of 2020.
Me too. I'll never forget. At that time, I was still working for Candace Owens, and we were in LA filming for her podcast, and we looked at each other. We were looking at the videos that people were sharing. People were sharing these videos of people in China, random people fainting in the subway. And we looked at each other. We're like, this is fake. This is totally fake. Even before they said 15 days to slow the spread, I just knew that it was just total bullshit. There was just no way that this could be real. And then I think because we were in California, we ended up having to leave California early because we didn't know what was going on. We were like, we're not going to be stuck in the state if they like actually lock down. It just got so crazy early. I remember a lot of people on the right, a lot of people today, a lot of big names on the right who are very, anti-COVID narrative now, they were so pro 15-day lockdown. A lot of them were. I mean, they had a lot of people fooled, even on the right.
And it makes you wonder if they were fooled or if they were paid, or I mean, all those things too. Like I always think back to like the rhetoric around not only COVID but the vaccine. Like my thing is, anybody that bought into the vaccine, there was never even a need for one. Like COVID was like we knew very early on. Like we were on a cruise. We were the last cruise ship they let back into the country. Whoa. Like they almost made us stay out there, which was. I still can't get muster up to go on another cruise because it terrified me, right? And like, so I'm basically, I wrote a post from Cozumel, Mexico on a cruise ship, and I'm getting actively canceled, like because I'm like, hey, everybody just wash your hands, and like, if you're sick, stay home. But like, remember, freedom isn't free. If you give up your freedom, you have to fight to get it back, right? And people got super upset. A lot of people that I would have thought would have been like diehard fitness, right-leaning people, right? And I looked at all the data. I'm like, this is fat people and old people. These are the people that do the dying, And I said that live, that these are the people that do the dying. And the death threats from even conservatives were just like coming in every 15 minutes. Whoa. But I come from healthcare, and that's just the truth. These are the people that do the dying. Morbidly obese people and elderly people, when there's a new flu or something like that, those are the people that do predominantly the most dying, because like for young, healthy people like us, it's barely a cold, right?
Right.
And then when we got home, I remember turning on the Roku, like our Roku TV, and the banner on Roku already said "safer at home." And I'm like, how did they even make this graphic that quickly? And so to me, I was just thinking like, this is way too coordinated for it not to get really crazy. Like really, really, really nuts. So I followed along with you. I'd love to have you back on at some point in time. I know I don't want to keep you. So can you tell everybody where they can find you, find your coaching, everything like that, please?
Yeah, sure. So I have a women's health group. We do workouts there, health challenges. We're also doing a fertility series right now that's really useful for women who want to prevent pregnancy without the pill, or maybe try to get pregnant. A lot of exclusive interviews in there. You can just go to myhealthshift.com, and you can find me on Instagram, GM Florio, and on Twitter at Florio Gina. But I would love to come back on anytime, Alan. I mean, we can make a regular thing out of it. We got a lot to talk about.
That would be awesome. I would love that. I will send you a message on Twitter for the normal via avenue. And then we can set something up. I would love to have you and other, like even more people on. I think we need to start having these conversations based around health and freedom, because they're very hand in hand to me. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on, because I saw we very much aligned too.
Yes.
So, yeah. And then I might be up in Tennessee sometime soon. I would love to meet you live in person. My wife and I might be coming up there at some point in time to see Mark's new gym. So that would be awesome.
We have a little studio here, so we can come film together in person. We would love to have you guys.
That would be awesome. Thank you very much. And I'm going to let you go now, because you said 45 minutes, and I stick to my word. So everybody, thank you very much. By the way, I would like for you to share this too when you see it on Twitter real quick. I just started a petition that is begging the FAA to set a size and weight limit on commercial airline travel for the safety of all passengers.
Please.
So please do go sign and share that petition. We've already gotten like close to 100 signatures, or 60 some signatures, and I just did it right before this. But I think that we need to have like reason and common sense come back to the world, and that is one way to do it. Instead of giving humongous people extra free seats that are endangering everybody on board, including in case of evacuation or even people in front of them or behind them, please do go sign that, and we can pressure the FAA to make it so people that weigh over 300 pounds or have a waist height ratio of above 0.7, which by the way is fat as fuck, not be able to fly until they lose some weight. And thank you very much for joining me, Gina. I appreciate it. We'll talk soon, okay?
Thanks, Alan. Bye. Thank you,
everybody. I'll be back tomorrow for live Q&A. Everybody, thank you very much, and I hope to talk to all you soon. God damn.